Savage.
Hey, what's going on, savages? How are we? Nice to have you back. Thank you very much. Episode 114. Look at us powering through this despite the COVID-19 taking over the world, killing people left, right, and centre. We're like, no, that shall not happen on our watch. We're going to make sure that we continue to bring you great comedy every single week. Thank you very much for joining me again. Hello to all the live viewers over on facebook.gg/Jeff Leach Comedian and all the viewers at youtube.com/Jeff Leach TV. Hello, how are you? Thanks for all the support as well. Let's start this off the right way by going a few shout outs. These are for all the new members on patreon.com/Savage Snowflake. Big shout out to John Dinger, Justin Coombs, Darkcraft, Cherie, Shire the MLG Pro, Chris Kennedy, Corm, Shannon Voigt, Sky Mathos, Adan Hernandez, Andrew O'Day, and Kurt Zupin. Appreciate you. And of course, big shout outs to our $50 patrons, Dan Lloyd, Siggy Riggy, Marcus Fleming, Adam Klongeniger, and Remy. I appreciate you guys so much. And finally, before we introduce our guest, I'm going to say a big shout out to our sponsors as well, cbdeeper.com, providing you with the greatest CBD products you could ever wrap your little brains around. If you're feeling a bit anxious right now, a little depressed maybe, perhaps you've got some aches and pains from all that lifting you're doing, carrying all your problems from morning until night. It's a difficult time and you need to relax. Get on cbdeeper.com, check out their wonderful CBD vapes, completely made out of organic hemp grown in Southern Oregon. Absolutely no vitamin E, no harmful pesticides, no heavy metals. All of their lab tests are available on the website, and if you use code SAVAGE at checkout, that's code SAVAGE, S-A-V-A-G-E, you'll get an extra 10% off every order. Can't say fairer than that. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into the podcast. Joining me today is an actor, a writer, a performer, and I think one of the greatest storytellers in stand-up comedy, living and legend right now, Mr. DC Benny. How are you, brother?
How are you, man? That was quite an intro. Thank you for that. Thank you for that intro, brother.
Well, I'm listening. So look, I know I like how humble and modest you are, and already a little embarrassed by how many nice things I said, but. First of all, you have quite an illustrious career. Like I was looking over your IMDb. I didn't realize just how many projects you've done, how many movies, how many TV shows over the years, how many comedy programs you've appeared on. But beyond that as well, I should give a little backstory. DC Benny and I know each other from performing together at the Comedy Cellar in New York City, if not the greatest comedy club in the entire world right now. I think that's fair to say.
I would say so.
And on top of being one of the best venues, it also, for me, there's three types of comics at the Cellar, especially. There's the comics who were something back in the day. They were like super mega famous back in the day, did a few shows, did a lot of late night appearances, and now they kind of just they're just great comics, but they don't really give a fuck about the glitz and glamour. There's comics who always should have been huge household names and have done lots of stuff throughout their career with longevity and I think are set to have even bigger futures laying ahead of them, which you are one of. And for instance, someone like Jessica Kirson for me is one of those comedians as well. 20, 30 years of work and is now blowing up in the way that she always deserved. And I think that's all stuff that's coming your way immediately. And then there's a third type of comic, which is super young, super successful, and super fucking arrogant. And then probably in 5 years, no one's going to know who they are because half of their material is whack. So you fall in that middle category that you're one of those people that is probably perpetually irritated by people coming up and going, man, you're an amazing comedian. Like, I don't understand how you're not more famous on every TV show. Does that get told to you a lot?
Oh, dude. I mean, that's on every YouTube clip I put up. There's somebody writes, why does this guy have a TV show or whatever? But
there you go.
I'm sure, listen, if you make people laugh, I'm sure that it's a compliment, and I'm sure a lot of them say that to a lot of people.
Oh, people say it to me all the time as well. I understand that it's coming from a nice place, but it's also incredibly fucking frustrating because you're like, yeah, I know, I should have a TV show. Give me one.
I haven't ruminated about that late at night, gnashing my teeth. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But I hope you don't take any offense to me describing you that way, because like I say, you have an impressive body of work already behind you. Like your IMDb page shows all the multiple feature films, TV shows, huge TV shows like Law and Order. Like you've definitely gone through all of the processes of being a successful actor, a successful comedian as well, appearing on like Last Comic Standing and the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. You've done an amazing body of work. But I think now, why I say now, I think is the time that you're coming into your like, this is going to be the one, mate. This is going to be the next couple of
Hey,
years.
from your lips to God's ears, man.
Dude, oh, they're listening. All the exec producers watch my podcast. They're listening. They're listening. Obviously, that's why I've got so many great roles. But seriously, man, I think there's when people find a particular facet of their comedic brilliance that speaks and resonates to people. And lately, you've been doing these videos, which I'm in love with, and I spent a good, 20 minutes watching one the other day with my girlfriend in bed, crying with laughter, and going through multiple videos then on your YouTube, which, by the way, you want to check out, ladies and gentlemen, youtube.com/DC Benny Comedy. Go and have a watch some of these videos, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He also posts them on Instagram at DC Benny as well, or at dcbenny.com. But these videos are you telling these very, like, you're a comedian, you're a writer, you're an actor, you know how to tell a story. You know how to write a story and write a good gag with a nice punch at the end and a nice round off. But also more than that, this feels very much now like you found a very conversational way to tell great comedy that makes it feel like you're just listening to a best friend telling a story. And you've condensed it down into these like 2-minute videos, 3-minute videos, 4-minute videos where you can just get lost in the story, And this seems to be a more recent thing for you.
Yeah, I appreciate. Well, that's the only benefit I can think of having this, pandemic situation is, we all go through performance withdrawal, and I sort of had this repository of all these stories that I was, working on or thinking about or whatever that I was going to work out on stage, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get up early in the morning. I'm gonna sit in my car in the back, and I'll just tape them and put them out there raw,
Yeah.
unfinished and unpolished, and just see what the reaction is. And it's a lot of fun. It feels like performing again a little bit,
It's also like it makes me feel like it's like you've just got in the car after the gig's finished and you're telling us, like, we're there waiting, like, what happened? Tell us what the fuck happened. Come on, tell us what went on.
Was the idea. Kind of is like it's a road trip,
Yeah.
It's like my favorite one of my favorite things about being a comic is not the road itself, but when you're on a road trip with someone you like and you're bullshit and you're going back and forth, and it's so much fun, and it makes the time go by, and you really bond with that person if it's a good connection or whatever. So
Absolutely.
I've always felt like on stage I wanted, when I performed, this is what I've strived for, but on a good night, that the audience feels like they know you and they're kind of on a road trip with you. We're just going together, and they're and it's not, it feels organic, like we know this dude, even though they've never seen you before, So that's, and we want more.
You also, what helps though as well, and this, is that your aesthetic. You're always very smiley. You're always very friendly. You're a handsome lad as well. So you got like a little. People like to watch a guy with a nice smile and a couple of cheekbones pop in, tell a story. Like, that, right? You're a fucking actor. You played the sexy, handsome cop. You've done those roles. I know you have. But there's also you also have like a very disengaging way about you, which I wonder where that comes from, because the New York comics that I've experienced, for the most part, and don't get me wrong, I've now been fortunate enough to perform with what I consider the cream of comedy across the globe on a nightly basis. A lot of those New York comics are all about the fucking putting you down, shitting on you, ripping on you as hard as possible. Like, that's part of their thing. It's part of the training. I get it, blah, 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 blah. It's all born out of insecurity anyway. But you never do that. You've never done that. And your persona on stage, or whether you're sitting in the back of your car like you're about to do a pro-Trump rant or something like that. That's what I was worried at first. Like, uh-oh, shit, Benny's fucking cracked. Look at the video. He's sitting in a car about to scream for 3 minutes. Oh, no, it's okay. He's cool. He's still good. But all of those things are very identifiable to the likable personality that you bring into the club, and that I don't think is a forced business choice. I think it's genuinely how you are.
Yeah, I don't I don't think it's the best business choice to be. I don't know if likability and stand-up comedy is as marketable as kind of being, as kind of what you described before, the other alternative. I feel like, especially with castings and things like that,
Really?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel, look,
Because
obviously,
you're in a unique position because you're an actor as well, and from an acting point of view, it pays to always be like, I love everything, light and positivity, go everyone, yeah, everything's amazing. Let's never talk about real issues because let's just keep it light and fluffy and Instagram friendly. Actor, give me jobs, casting director. Whereas a comic, yeah, absolutely is like, let me tell you the shittest parts of every part of humanity that you believed in. Let me point out why it's all a fabrication, you fuckers. But finding somewhere in the middle, I think, is where the sweet spot might lie,
yeah. Look, all of it should be accessible in both lines of work. Certainly, I've found that it was more problematic for me with to look one way, and there's an expectation. I don't know what it is, but there's an expectation that uh, my act and my performance is going to match whatever the way I look is, and it doesn't. That's been problematic throughout my career. It's like,
Can
we
you
don't know what.
elaborate on that? Like, what do you think people what are their preconceived notions about you when you walk on stage?
I, you know, I it's like I have to work harder to make guys like me in the room.
Of course, yeah, because you're too handsome. They fucking hate you because you look like you can
Uh,
get the women that
really,
they
man.
spend all day
I'm
online
ancient,
stalking.
man. What's the threat, man? Um, I have to work a little hard, and that's not all. That's not all, guys. But I found that I remember Gnome at the cellar was giving me shit, and he's like, you go up there, and it must be so easy for you, and you're pretty. And I was like, guy, it's not comedy. It's not like that.
Oh, it's the
Comedy,
opposite.
yeah, you've got a deficit. You've got to go up there. It doesn't help to they want to see the fat guy fall down. That's what they want to see.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
that's
If you
and
have an
so
aesthetic, a discernible aesthetic that says I'm a funny person, whereas when they see you and me, and I'm guilty of getting the same,
sure, you got a pretty
vitriol off
mouth.
of. Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? I got a pretty mouth, I got pretty lips. But yeah, people immediately go, well, what's this guy got to laugh about? What about this man's life is remotely upsetting enough that he has to joke about it for my pleasure?
They think you have it together, like you think, and really, we don't.
I'm a depressed alcoholic, mate. I mean,
We're comics, man. We're
yeah,
comics. If we're up there doing that, we don't have it together. We just examine it and turn it into fuel.
yes,
So I find that has can be a deficit, and but the thing is after years and years and years of doing it, you go up there and you turn it around immediately. You have you that's that's the best part is being able to turn a room around that is maybe partially populated by people who don't want to like you,
yeah,
and they can't help it by the end. That's the challenge, because they're laughing their asses off, which
absolutely.
is what they're supposed to be doing. So that is a thing. But I do try to, listen, I just try to organically be myself up there, which took a long, long time. I used
Right.
to, when I first started, I just did straight characters. I didn't do there was no mortar between the bricks. It was just,
You literally went from what big character pieces one to the other, was it?
yeah, I would just, here's the super of the building. Here's this, here's this guy driving the cab. Here's I mean, the Mexican guy going through or the Japanese guy going through the Burger King drive-through, blah 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 blah, and there would just be these almost little sketches, but there was no part of really my voice in there. And then years later, I was telling my wife a story about going to a prom in DC, and with this
Hang
drug
on,
dealer.
hang on. Let me get comfortable because I know one's coming now. Here we go. I can enjoy it. I'm just gonna sit back.
I won't do it, bro. But
No, do it. Tell me a fucking story, Papa DC. Tell me a story. I'm ready, man. My body's ready. Let's go.
all right, so I went to DC public schools. The only school system with White History Month. I was the only white kid in my class, and for the school play, I was the snowstorm. Yeah, I just ran across stage naked. I was very shy growing up with girls, and everybody used to hang out at Popeye's Fried Chicken because the biscuits were really good. Like, you could buy weed with the biscuits. People would gamble. I got 6 biscuits, whatever. It was like currency. So I went in there one day, and it was this girl who worked there named Lawanda, who was a cheerleader, but she weighed like 380. So she didn't cheerlead too hard. She was like, I'm 246. Hey, I'm gonna go get something to eat. And that was it. And I ordered some chicken. I looked down on my platter. She had put 6 biscuits on my platter. So I said, I didn't order those biscuits. She's like, X day, free day on the biscuit. I was like, what? She's like, motherfucker, it's a hookup. Take them biscuits. I'm like, all right. I didn't realize with a hookup, there's payback. You just don't get shit for free. So the next day I'm walking around school, I hear this voice. Oh, so now you can't talk to nobody, body. And it echoed like that. I said, Lawanda. She's like, motherfucker, I gave you biscuits. What you think? Biscuits grow on trees? Biscuits. B-I-S skits. Right? So I went to class. She told her brother No Neck, right? No Neck had No Neck. He had beat up everybody in school. He came up to me
Love
after
it.
class. He's like, yo, I understand my sister gave you biscuits and you reciprocate. I was like, damn, because he had a space. Like he could smoke a cigarette with no hands, whatever.
Me
And he's
too.
like, well, yeah, right. But this is gorgeous. He's like, you gonna take her to the prom? I said, all right. So I went to go ask her. She was playing hard to get. I said, Lawanda. She's like, did somebody call my name? I said, oh, you want to go to the prom? She said, yeah. So the night the prom came, I didn't have enough money for a limo, so I borrowed my friend's mom's station wagon. I drove up to the projects. I knock on the apartment door. No Neck comes to the door. He's like, whatever you do, do not bring her home hungry. I'm like, okay. So we went to this Chinese
That's the
restaurant.
pep talk.
Went to this Chinese restaurant. Apparently, she'd been there before because you walk in, whole staff goes nuts. Lawanda here, put the extra cook on there. Lawanda here. Hello, Lawanda. How y'all doing? And she was tearing up this food. She's like, what's this brown chewy thing? I'm like, that's an egg roll. What's this white crunchy thing? I'm like, that's the plate. You got to pace yourself. Right? So, we go to the prom. We dance. The evening starts winding down. I go to drop her off. I said, well, Lawanda, I had a wonderful time. I just want to say goodnight. She's like, oh, no, baby. The evening ain't over yet. The biscuits going in the gravy. The white meat gonna get seasoned. I was like, can't we just be friends? She goes, what are you, gay? I was like, can you keep a secret? And that was the prom story I told my wife. She said, you got to tell that on stage. And I'm like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff in between or whatever. But that was kind of the first story I told on stage. And about, growing up in DC and going to this prom with this guy who's a drug dealer's sister.
And I see, look, thank you for the story, first of all. I always feel like it's a little blessing when I get to hear one of your stories. I think the best comics in the world are the ones who have become so calm within themselves and dispelled enough of their own insecurities to be confident in the way they speak and the way they talk about their lives. A story like that, now don't get me wrong, obviously from a comedian's point of view, I'm looking at it going, all right, well, he's got a couple of little punches throughout, do you know what I mean? He's building to the big punch at the end. He's got 3 characters. He does the voices for each of the characters. There's and the words are very clipped, the lines what's this thing that's white and crunchy? That's the plate, boom, boom, boom. The digs are very sweet and a little bit funny, and they're exaggerated. He didn't necessarily say that to her, of course, but within the frame of the story, I'm still believing where I'm at. I'm lost in it. But it's your voice, man. Your voice is now so fine-tuned that I feel like you've hit that place that very few comedians ever hit, but only the greats hit, which is why I believe the next few years for you is going to be something magical, is your voice is so... No, but dude, honestly, and I'm not just trying to fucking blow smoke up your ass, you know that. Your voice is so finely tuned now. I can listen to you talk about anything. You could tell me about the house that you're renovating right now, or a bit of gardening you did yesterday evening, or taking a really big shit the other day, and I'd sit there and listen to it for 5 minutes, and I think anyone would in an audience, and that's a really hard thing to attain. And I wonder, do you feel that because you said it took you a while to find your voice, which is the term that we use, at least in the industry, to find your voice, what was the change that occurred in you? What switch did you get to flip, and how to find a place where you went, now I feel good. I feel good in who I am.
Well, I always, when I went back to when I coach guys who are like trying to do stand up, they want to try it or they want to elevate their game if they've done it a little bit. I always tell them from my perspective, the best way to do stand up is to try to recreate those times when you were funny off of the stage, when you were around friends and family.
Right.
And then when you go recreate that, whatever it is you do. Don't go up there with like I'm going to do this thing that's completely different. Start with who you are and what you did there, amongst friends and family at the dinner table, or at a bar with your buddies, or whatever it is. Go up there and do that. And I feel like, when I was just doing the characters and stuff, I'd always go back to thinking about, oh man, I remember my friends would ask me, they'd request stories, like, remember that time, tell him, there'll be a new guy in the equation, like we're all hanging out, and they'd be like, tell him that time when you were living in Times Square across from Show World, and then, with the tranny hookers in the alley and the blah 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 blah.
I didn't know you were hanging out with Jim Norton back then. That's amazing. Okay, cool.
I wasn't by the glory hole. I was up in the. I was in my apartment.
It still counts if you're watching and jerking off, Benny. Just so you know that you're still involved.
Just be like, it would be like I thought about what I actually did off stage to make people laugh, and it wasn't just the voice or a character or whatever. It was like telling it. It was usually based on some bad shit that happened to me, and I turned it around later and made it, and you make it funny. Those are usually the funniest things.
Absolutely.
You're having a really bad day, and you explain that to somebody, after a little time has passed, and you're going through it, and then you throw in, your isms.
Of course, and a couple of artistic license exaggerations, or a clever line here, a clever line there. But if the core meat, so what you're saying is, if the core meat of the story is so real that you can put yourself emotionally and mentally back into that place, then you'll be able to find the humor that you found previously and bring that out again.
Yeah, I feel like that's really what it took me a while to figure out. That is what I'm actually good at, is the whole, instead of just the pieces of the puzzle. I was giving people appetizers.
You went back into Rwanda there for a second, a little bit. Pieces of the puddle.
Oh shit, man!
You're stuck in the character.
I'm saying, I'm trying to lay out the whole thing.
No, you're giving me a quick 101 for me and the listeners, so we can go, all right, this is the 101 of comedy. And I agree with you. I mean, look, other comics who I think, a couple of my favorites, but like Carlin and also Billy Connolly. Billy Connolly even more so. I see so much similarity in the way that Billy Connolly tells a story and the way that you tell a story, because you're literally just. I'm just going, just fucking, we're basking, as an audience, we're basking in the storytelling ability. Just like, keep fucking telling me stories. And that's a very hard thing to do. There's other comics, don't get me wrong. There's someone like Mark Normand, who he's great at his one-liner gags. Very Jerry Seinfeld in his thing, but a little bit more adult and a younger version. And that's wonderful comedy that I admire and I respect. But for me personally, storytellers, that's the people that I want to listen to, because they're the people who founded fucking societies by being orators and being engaged people and tell them a story and get them lost in the moment, but
yeah, it's my favorite style as well to listen to. I love them all. I love the monologists, I love the impressionists, I love all of it, and I appreciate all of it. But what I really like, what I really will sit down and watch, is when somebody, Ron White will break out a great story, or there was a guy named Vic Henley who passed recently, who was
I heard about
a friend of mine, and that dude was world-class storyteller, world-class. And just to hear him start spinning it, in that Alabama, country acting, well, I was down there in the barn, and then the thing was girl, and it was just art, man. I love it. I love listening to it.
I feel like you've given me a little brief 101 in, hey, as a comedian, you want to do this, you want to do that, which I understand is you're not just palming me off with a lesson to answer my question, which was what changed in you. But I know you've very specifically said, all right, when I realized that was the thing that I was best at, that's what helped me find my voice. But I also do think there's, and I don't want to tie it too directly to mental health, but there's definitely an element of a lot of the best comics that I respect and admire, where things happen over the course of their life, things that they decided to change about themselves that really led them to be able to find that voice, or find that that level of honesty with their own creativity. And I wondered if there was anything over the course of your life that had taken you to that journey, you know, from the young comic from 20, 30 years ago to the man that you are now performing on stage, you know, and
I'll say this in response to that. There is stuff that I've wanted to talk about that I haven't been able to, that I'm still poking away at, you know, which is usually traumatic stuff, you know, like I have an album coming out, and that album, my mom died.
what is it, like drum and bass or?
No, like stand comedy album, bro.
You do look a bit like you could be a French DJ though as well. You do realize that, right? A French DJ producer. Yeah, Monsieur DC Benny, okay, yeah, it's drum and bass music. Hey.
Oh shit! Yeah, people have been yeah. I could be like a fisherman or a DJ. I don't know.
Or like a Greek uncle who's always flirting with his niece's best friends from college. Do you know what I mean? You got that kind of like, he's still too good looking. Yeah, you're a zaddy. You're a zaddy now. You realize that?
I'm a malaka.
I'm a malaka. Yeah.
So, you know, there was my mom had Alzheimer's for about 7 or 8 years.
Is she still with us now, or?
No, she went and she passed. And it was tragic. It was a really hard time for my family.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
There was, what got us through was laughing at a lot of the things that if you have someone in your family with dementia, there's just some funny shit that happens, you know, that offsets the pain of it. And I do a story on this album coming out that took me years. My mom's been dead, I don't know, 7 years now, something like that. And this story was about, you know, it went from my childhood, growing up in a very strange, eclectic household.
Can I get a bit of background on that before we go into this story about your mum? Because I don't know anything about your upbringing, man. I know nothing.
Oh, dude. My mom was an immigrant from Germany, okay, and my dad was the son of Polish Jewish immigrants.
Okay.
So who had been killed off by the Nazis. So they moved to the States. You know, meanwhile, you know, my dad marries a German, so that didn't go over well. You know, and this is a lot of where
I'll break the system from the inside. The inside of this woman's vagina. Let's do it. Yeah.
But it, you know, it's like they would when they would get in arguments, my mother, people think I'm making it up, but she would lock herself in a room and play German marching music.
Ja, das ist eine schöne mein Führer. She's just venting.
But that was my childhood.
Yeah.
That was my childhood.
Dad, why does Mum grow her lip hair out, but just in the middle? What's that about?
Oh shit. Shit, man, I'm losing track here.
Okay, so you had an interesting upbringing, and then you were talking about your mother having dementia, and then that being able to laugh at some of those instances.
Being able, like, we have a very dark sense of humor in my family. Is really what I'm the long and short of it. And but it took me so long to get to this story about you know, her passing, this mishap that happened at the memorial, and this whole story and her relationship with the neighbors and blah 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 at this time, and but it was a breakthrough for me. So I'm, you know, that kind of stuff took years to get to, though, and that's the funniest shit. You know, it's truly some of the funniest stuff that I have, and that I guess is kind of answering your question. I mean, kind of like, where does it come from, or where, you know?
Yeah, I think what I'm mostly intrigued by is the men, and I can only talk about the men in comedy because there's plenty of women that I think are absolutely, you know, legendary and incredibly talented, but I can't relate to them obviously on the gender spectrum, right? So as a man in comedy, I'm drawn to particular types of men in comedy, and they're men like you. You know, big, beautiful, thick cocks, butts, just fucking tan skin. No. It's dudes who are like, who represent things that I can identify with, of course. Like, I think, you know, I'm never going to lie and think that I'm not, at least as society deems it, a mildly attractive dude. So I have a certain aesthetic that is a bit more rare in the world of comedy, in the realm of comedy. And so when I meet men like you, or Brian Callen is another example, you know, someone who's a talented actor, a great stand-up, a very strong, boom, 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 alpha kind of man. Look, Godfrey's a great.
Oh, he doesn't get handsomer than Godfrey, does it?
Godfrey is the most beautiful man in comedy. Like he's got like at least like what 15 years on me. Looks 10 years younger. I'm straight as a Roman road, and I would definitely lick his anus. I just to know what it tastes like.
Cool. I'll pass that along to him.
Yeah, like shit. Oh, that's all right. I've texted him this plenty of times. He knows. I send him a dick pic once a month, just in case. But seriously, he's like. But there's like a beautiful, strong, talented performer. But also, I'm intrigued by men like you and like Godfrey and like Brian Callen, who allow themselves to be alpha and strong and have self-belief and be proud of their aesthetic qualities as well as their performance abilities, but never shit on other people. They're not insecure. They don't shit. And there's other comics that I won't even name their names because let's not get into that. But there's other comics who have some of the identifiable qualities I've just said, like good-looking lads in comedy, strong, alpha, talented stand-ups, and they're so desperately fucking insecure that all that I know about them is shitting on other people, like trying to diminish the ability of younger comics that represent something like they do. Whereas you don't have that in the slightest. Maybe you do and it's never presented itself to me, but that's what I'm intrigued by. How does...
Well, listen, when I was coming up as a comedian, okay, I remember the few people that were nice to me.
Right.
Okay. And I remember the ones that weren't. I definitely remember the ones that weren't. And they have a special place. There's a special list for the ones that weren't.
There's a diary, there's a journal that you jot in every day.
But you know, right next to Godfrey's anus. But I always, you know, said to myself, this business is hard enough. There's just no reason. There's no reason to be a dick to these young up and coming guys, man. There's no reason for it. You gotta, you're creating allies. You're creating later on, you might be writing for their show. You might be just on a business level, but
Sure.
just on a human level, it's so hard, man. This business is so fucking hard. It's just, you don't need to add to it by shitting on people. And there's shitting on people. And then there's, you take shots where it's fun and it's, it's not mean spirited.
Sure.
I always felt like, coming up for me, the guys who were cool and tried to kind of, lend a helping hand, give a little advice or whatever. There were very few of those guys, and I always remember them, and that's what I wanted to be like.
Were you always funny like that and kind like that when you were a youngster as well, or was this just when you came to maturity?
No, I mean, I always listen. I love collaborating with people. That's a whole other thing. Is I love to collaborate with other creative people who can do shit that I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
You can make beautiful music together. You can shoot a thing.
I told you you're a French producer. I knew it. I just want to make beautiful music with a pop star. Maybe. What's her name?
It's turning into a Truffaut film over here.
Dua Lipa, call me. Let's do it.
But I feel like, I've always collaborated with guys coming up with different skill sets, and learn from them. And I like having those. I like having allegiances,
right.
And not. I don't. I don't need to. There's no need to be shitting on everybody. The industry will do that for you.
There you go. Yeah, there's plenty of people who will do that.
So. And that's also why I teach. It's like when I was coming up, there was no way to learn but trial and error, which isn't a bad thing.
Sure.
But it's nice if there was an option to learn from somebody, I would have done it. So that's really, in a nutshell, how I feel about it. I think and then again, if I see like one of these young comics. A lot of these guys, they when they're nice to you because they need something from you, but then you see them how they treat their peers and they treat them like shit. I disassociate myself. I'll say something to them then, but I disassociate from that kind of shit, man. It's because that's just gonna, that's gonna well, those are the guys who blow up anyway. Those are the guys who end up blowing up.
And that's the frustrating thing is that, I mean, yeah, there are moments where I think there's a couple of very nice comics who are doing well, and it always makes me happy and warms my heart when that happens. But then there's a lot of comics doing well who display the traits that you just said, you know, like that, like they're doing well because they're good at what they do, but they're not necessarily carrying that mantle with any with a humble nature or any kind of, you know.
That's show business, and you have to sell. You have to be a.
You know what that is also? You haven't fucking lost it yet. You haven't lost it. I think that the reason that I again, please don't take any offense. You know, I guess you're a few years older than me, right? I'm 36. You got to be at least a decade older than me, right?
I'm 53, man.
There you go, man. 53. All right. You look fucking wonderful for your age. We've already established that, all right? An absolute sweetheart. But I genuinely find that the majority of the comics that I bond with are men in their 40s and 50s, because men in their 40s and 50s with some kind of established career in the industry normally have had periods of great success, and then a down period, and then a period of success, and then a down period, and then fucking a few years where nothing happened, and then something happens and they think it's going to be amazing, and then that doesn't quite work out, and then so those people in the industry, men and women actually, and which is why I always cite Jesse Curson as one of those, you know, are the kind of people that I bond with because I had that career in my early 20s on TV in the UK where I was famous overnight.
Oh, wow.
And then I did too much coke and drank too much and acted like a fucking douchebag. And I was, you know, I was never a bad person, but I was certainly like arrogant, and it was all born out of insecurities and deep, deep depression. All of it was related to the fact that I didn't feel confident in myself in one iota without drink or drugs or bravado, you know, and kind of losing that career or that opportunity and then having to rework the right way to rebuild it up. It's almost like I don't feel like I'm 50 in my body in the way that I perform, but I certainly feel that I'm 50 in that experience. And I find a lot of young comics can't relate to that because a lot of the people that we're seeing blowing up, it's their first foray into the world of, oh, you're a celebrity now.
They go up and you warn them about the down times. I remember I was out in LA and there was a guy, there was an actor, I was on some audition. It was a test, it was a screen test, something like that. I don't remember what the hell it was, but we're waiting in the hall. And there was an older guy that was also, and I'd seen this guy in a lot of Western type. He was like a Sam Shepard type, you know, like one of those types. And I asked him, we were just talking. I said, what advice would you give me? Because he was, you know, dude was successful. He'd been working forever. What advice would you give a young performer? And he said, save. He said, save your money. When you make your money, save your money.
I wish I'd had a conversation with him.
Yeah. It's going to stop, and there'll be times when you're making no money.
Yeah.
You know, no money. And so you have to balance it out. So he told me that, and I'd gone through a similar, not to the level that you had, but I had some bumps that were very, you know, of success where I thought it was just going to keep coming. You know, you get a deal, a network deal, and things are happening above blood, and money's coming in, and all of a sudden there ain't anything, you know, and you know, you're living off spots and whatever. So I think that stuff shapes you, and young performers, comedians, they can either hear it when you want to tell them, or sometimes they don't want to hear it. Often is the case, and I can relate to that. You know, but they don't.
Yeah, you got the bravado and the arrogance, and nothing can touch me. I'm unstoppable.
Who the fuck are you to tell me? Who are you? Yeah. You know, I think that that can be a thing, but you know, it's all about the longevity, man. You know, it's all about the longevity in this business, and you got.
That's a word that is not thrown around enough in the industry, and is one of the things that I've been trying, at least through the course of these podcasts. You know, there's various different conversations. They've all gone in different directions. But one thing that does seem to come up a lot is, what are you pursuing with your craft? And the thing that I have always cite, and a lot of my favorite comics have cited is, I just want a career. I want longevity of career. I want to hit 90 and still be working and still be loving the work and creating for people
Yeah,
and be
I
able
think
to
that,
pay my fucking bills that way.
yeah, that is, you know, it's no, it's useless to have a, you know, to be like, you get that one blast and then it's done. You know, I always say that I'd like to, you know, be in touch with my audience so that you always have somebody that you can work for. Like right now, I don't know who's on YouTube, who's watching me here, who's watching me there, whatever. They're scattered all over the place. And when it
The
would be nice to,
51,000 people who listen to this podcast. YouTube.com/DC Benny Comedy, at DC Benny on all social media, DCBenny.com for the website. There you go.
fantastic.
That's who. That's
Fantastic.
who's watching.
That's it. That's what's up.
But sorry, you were saying you don't necessarily know exactly who your specific audience is right now, who's tuning
I
in.
know who they are, but how to get in touch with them, like how to, you know, how to, the people who enjoyed my comedy over the years. You know what I mean? I don't have a direct connect to them like the way, you know, if you're very famous, you have that connection. So
You know how you connect with them, and this is where I am gonna make you feel 53, and I hope you forgive me. Listen, mate, you need to get a slightly better webcam. Actually, this is a great webcam. Ignore that first comment. You don't need a better webcam. Get yourself a $120 USB mic. Get a Blue Yeti microphone. Plug it into that laptop of yours. Now that you're started to upload content to YouTube, do YouTube live broadcasts. Do them once a week, or maybe more frequent if you can do it, for like, honestly, for half an hour, and do them as little segments, and tell these stories in that way and react to people in chat and stuff like that, because you have such a wonderful conversational, warm and welcoming attitude. It's like it radiates off you, man. It really does, Benny.
all right, well, I'll give that. I'll check that out.
And I think you'll find very rapidly people will be tuning back in and telling their friends, oh, dude, Benny's doing another one of those fucking live. We got to tune in, man. You got to tune in. Because the whole industry is being reshaped right now anyway.
I know.
And the people who are thriving are nerdy motherfuckers like me. No, I'm serious, dude. I might be 6'4" and love a punch up and riding motorcycles, but I also play video games all day. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, that's the future of putting content out there. And I don't think it has anything to do with age or gender or sexuality or any of those things. It has everything to do with how willing you are to go, how do I access my audience in a more direct way? And I understand that you want to be able to monetize that, but you, for instance, could already have a YouTube channel, tell those stories, and have a very simple donation thing at the bottom. If you're enjoying the performance, if you're enjoying the stories, drop a little dono, and you'd be surprised how many people will jump in there, man, and just throw you like $20. Man, that was the most I've laughed in for fucking weeks. Thanks for that half an hour of non-stop laughing, man. Here's fucking $20 from you. And all you need is 100 people doing that, you know? And that's $2,000. You know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing. I genuinely believe that is something you could do.
I'll check that out. That's, you know, I'm not a techno guy, a technology guy.
I mean, look, the fact that you just said I'm not a techno guy and didn't understand the irony of bringing it back to the fact that you're definitely a French DJ and producer every time. I don't know, techno. I don't know. I'm drum and bass, right?
Shit.
Do you think what do you think is going to happen to comedy moving forward, man?
I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of guys doing these, you know, there's drive-through things.
You saw Aaron Berg and his wife jumping up and doing.
Aaron Berg. I've seen a couple other guys. Some people reached out to me. Hey, there's a drive-through upstate. You want to make $200? I'm like, I'm not that fucking desperate to be driving, you know, 6 hours.
Send them my way, bro. I'll take the fucking $200. I am that desperate. Give it to me.
But I think, you know, these open air venues will be probably the start. Comedy's going to be there one way or another. It's going to be there. We know that.
And that's going to be one of the first things people want as well, because after something that miserable and that depressing, the first thing people do is go, I need to go out and laugh. I need to go somewhere to be taken out of that place and that mindset for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it feels like, not to be crass about it, but it's like Scarface when he comes, when it comes to Florida, like it's this pussy waiting to be fucked. That's what the that's what the comedy world is right now. It's just how is it going to go? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen with clubs. I'm not sure. It's such an unknown. But there'll have to be some reformatting. There's going to be some kind of reformatting, and there'll be a way for people to gather, not just like this, not just via Zoom, because that I've been doing these Zoom shows, and they're fine, but that the beauty of comedy is when you're collectively laughing, together, and you feel it. So they'll, I don't know if they space it out a little more, if the
They're
venues
gonna
get
they're gonna have to dot people around, yeah, like kind of have a little spaced out tables.
it's going to be more speakeasy-ish. I think it's going
But
to go back to that a little bit.
once people, it's interesting though, because once people have started digesting different forms of, well, all forms of media, but different forms of art, let's say, in a very different manner, especially for a younger generation. Like I think a lot of young generation were already being molded into people who digest comedy at home through the internet, whether that be endless cycle of Netflix and HBO and Amazon Prime specials, or Cubs were still enjoying a good period, I think, prior to this COVID-19. But I think a lot of people now would just go, I can just sit at home and tune in to a show. I can just throw $5, not have to leave my couch. I can sit with my dick out and a beer in my hand that costs me nothing. Well, or cost me 50 cents from the local Ralph's instead of, $8 from a club, and I have to buy 2 of these things. And I can sit here for $5 and watch a load of comics perform and laugh along at home.
I feel like in the when we had the comedy boom here in the 80s, in the States, there was this comedy boom, and everybody put up a mic. Every Arthur Treacher's had a fucking little Wednesday night comedy thing, or whatever. And then stand up got on TV a lot more, and that kind of killed that boom. So we're having another iteration of that, where we were having another comedy boom. I feel like before COVID.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, actually,
So,
I actually think it was slightly on the downturn. I think it became a little oversaturated, and people were starting to be a bit like, I've seen these same 7 comedians on every TV show on TV, and because the producers don't go out and actually go to clubs and watch up and coming talent, they just rotate the same 7 people.
Yeah, well, you and I know that, and I think that at the same time, I think that there's gonna be some kind. I don't know what it is, but there'll be some kind of happy medium between the live experience and sitting home having a beer from Ralph's. That's like movie theaters.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
God, those things got to be done now. I don't know how they're going to come back. Except in pockets, in ironic little pockets of like throwback things. I remember when you used to go see a movie, you could come see, that kind of thing. But it'll be. I'm curious to see what I this is why I'm digging putting these stories out there on, just taping them in my car and putting them out there, because I think that, hopefully it'll drive people to whatever the iteration of the live performance becomes, which I've agonized over it with a bunch of other comedians. Like, what's it going to be? What's it going to look like? How long? And there'll be a surge, I think, of when we're allowed to go to clubs again and people are allowed to, and then but there's got to be a reinvention. Something new is coming, and I don't know what it is, but some new way of experiencing comedy is coming.
Well, I think VR will be it eventually. Unfortunately, it's going to be. They could already have done some amazing things with VR with live comedy, and they haven't yet. One of those 360 cameras broadcasting a live feed. You pop on a VR headset, you're in the club. You're in the comedy club. That would be a great way to do it. Unfortunately, it'll be one of the last things that happen. And I know what will happen is some giant media mogul like Netflix will do a deal with Oculus Rift, who make the majority of the headsets that are widely bought at the moment. And then they'll go, great, okay, Oculus and Netflix have teamed up to bring you live comedy specials where you could tune in. And it will be at a certain time, people put on the headset at home, and then they can, like, play with each other's genitals whilst they're watching
Nice.
show. You can do all
Nice.
sorts of stuff. You can bone. You could fuck each other whilst watching DC Benny tell stories on
Brilliant.
stage. And who
That's brilliant.
doesn't? And every time you like look over them, be like, hey. And then for the comics, I think it would be a case of either having like smaller skeleton audiences there. But you're right, because we need the audience live to give the energy we give. But then if they're at home trying to get that energy from us, comedy's going to become even more and more filled with absolute psychopaths who can continue performing even if they can't hear the laughter. That's what's going to happen.
There's a lot of Rupert Pupkins are going to be out there, in their basements.
I don't know the reference, unfortunately. Who's Rupert
Oh,
Pupkin?
King of Comedy.
Oh,
Robert
yes,
De Niro.
yes. Jesus Christ. All right, Robert De Niro's character, yeah.
Out in the basement, yeah.
Right, okay, right.
That's your version of techno.
There you go.
Oh.
I don't know about the techno, man. I can't wait. I can't wait to use that one. One day when I'm a dad, my kid's going to be like, Dad, can you get my hoverboard to light? And I'll be like, I don't know about the techno, dude. And he's going to be like, what are you saying? I'll be like, it's all right. It's a callback. It was 30 years ago. Me and a guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Daddy used to be something. And then I go into a garage and I have a drink. I would have given up sobriety by then. I just smash my head against the wall.
Right.
Turn on the car engine, turn on the hover car, close the door, and just quietly slip off.
Like the Jetsons.
That was the most depressing bit of storytelling I've ever done. And you know what? It felt real. I think you're right. I think there's people are going to definitely try and storm back into the clubs, but it's going to take a while for it to reach any kind of normalcy again, and I do think that there's what we now have is an entirely new form of comedy club, which is the virtual online comedy club. And that will continue. I don't think it's going to stop happening. I think if anyone's got half a brain cell, they're going to find a way to, yes, go and do their live performances. Yes, go and travel around. But I also think it pays, like I'm already considering doing like a monthly stand-up show virtually, Because you can do it with relatively little input cost. And I think that if you can fill a room with 100 people on Zoom for $5, I'd rather once a month just know that one night I'm going to do a show to 100 people paying $5 each to watch from the comfort of their phone and be able to hear them all laugh through the power of Zoom. Make yourself the priority speaker so you're always heard over their laughter anyway. And mute everyone else, anyone who's talking, blah, blah, blah. You have a live producer there. I think that's going to happen. And I think it's yet another way. Look at someone like Schultzy, right? There's a young upstart making waves, doing it slightly different.
Lad making his way. A young fucking lad making his way through
a young lad, he's a young boy. He's out there. He's doing it. He's trying something new and he's succeeding. And fair play to him, fair play to him. But he's, the way that he's put out content and look, he's set a precedent, I think. No one wants my comedy special because they don't think I'm marketable, because I don't tick all the right boxes. I'm very anti-PC, not very politically correct. I'm anti-SJW. I'm not an alt-right or a hard right-winger or anything like that. But people think I must be that because I don't agree with the overt left or the overt PC culture, etc., etc. But then he went, all right, no one wants this shit. I'll give it away on YouTube in segments to people who do want it, and then finds an audience of millions who start to fund his career.
Yeah.
And
it's a great
now
model.
Everyone's doing that. Yeah. Mark fucking Normand, Sam Morril, they all had to release their specials on Netflix, on YouTube. And then what happened is when it blew up and suddenly started getting the likes and the subscribes and all that business, Comedy Central comes along and says, well, I know we didn't want to buy this. Yeah. I know we didn't necessarily want to put this on network, on TV, but would you accept X amount of payment to have our logo on it now and we can feature it on Comedy Central? Because they already know it's an assured hit.
Yeah.
And I think that the same thing, we have to consider that virtual comedy clubs should be something that we're all working hard to maintain a presence in, even if it feels a bit alien and kind of like not what comedy is meant to be.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think you're right. I think it's important to do that and make the adjust. You gotta adjust with the times, and the rest. The dust will settle on the rest of it. We're in a, for whatever normalcy, whatever normalcy ends up being comedically. But Yeah, I'm making an effort to do a few of these Zoom shows and figure it out, and I'm teaching by Zoom, and that I was terrified to do that, man. I was terrified.
How do people if people have an interest? Because I get a million messages a day about voice acting now because I'm portraying this character Ghost in a video game called Call of Duty Modern Warfare. 60
Oh,
million players around the world right now. So
wow.
on a daily basis, I get between 5 to 10 messages on social media going, "Hey man, I really want to be a voice actor. How do I get involved?" And now I've just taken to copy pasting the advice that I've given to previous people, just trying to send it in there as much as I can. But I realized I should monetize this. I should build a platform that teaches people how to get into the world of voiceover. You're already doing that. You're teaching people how to become comedians. How do
Yes.
they? I'm certain there's people who are going to listen to this who want to do that. How do they get involved? And this is a shameless plug, but let's do it, man.
Oh, they can listen. They can hit me on social media. There's I'm doing. I
Is
do
there a sign
private.
up page on your website or something of that nature where they can register
There
to
is
become?
there's an email address that they can, or they can direct message me on Instagram, that kind of thing. And I teach through a school. I did the Manhattan Comedy School, or I do private coaching, and I do it by Zoom now. And Zoom's been great. I was honestly, I was terrified
Oh
to.
yeah, because
Oh man, you
especially
could look.
wannabe comedians, they don't wash. Like even real comedians barely wash. Like, you don't want to be in a room with these people.
No, just the Zoom part was, because I had been doing the classes live, and it's great. You're in a room. There's 20 people. They get to see each other. There's that interaction. There's an energy.
And
So
as we
this is
know, you're not a fan of the techno, so
right. Yes. Yeah. Only house music all night long.
just house
Uh,
music.
but so again, making the adjustment with that, and I feel like if I'm able to do that, I'm very set in my ways, man. At this point, but you gotta, you'll find this out when you get to your 50s, man.
I'm just putting your website in the chat so people can see it now live. But just a reminder, if you have an interest in that, ladies and gentlemen, check out dcbenny.com, dcbenny.com, and make sure you check them out. Listen, before we wrap it up, man, because I could talk to
Yeah.
you for days, I feel like. But I'm sure you have other things to do because you have family and responsibilities. Before you go, sorry, let me ask you one final question. Even though you have achieved a lot, even though you have done a large number of films and TV shows, you've appeared on stand-up comedy shows, on late-night shows, you've got the new album. When does that come out, by the way, the new album?
The date is pending. It's 800-Pound Gorilla Records. It's called Adrift in Predicaments. There's a special that I shot in a club.
I love
Uh,
even the name. Look at you. You're such a fucking French artist, aren't you? Adrift in Predicaments.
Adrift in Predicaments, man. And there's a special that I'm gonna. We're talking to All Things Comedy now, so
Okay,
I'll see
great.
if that goes
That's
through.
Bill Burr and some of his
Bill
mates,
Burr,
right?
yeah. The old running buddy of mine. So
Are you and Bill friends, are you?
yeah, we're
Oh,
good.
dude. Well, then he should be behind that. I mean, look, there's a man who's been producing and assisting his talented friends and stuff. So I hope that
He has
pans out.
been. I don't like to ask. I don't like to push it out too much. You know what I mean? But
No, but also he's a
great.
businessman. He's a clever guy. He's got successful TV shows, animated shows, podcasts, and now YouTube channel. Like the guy's not an idiot, and I know that he is a big supporter of great comedy and putting that out there. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that
So,
pans out. All right, so Drifting Predicament, no official date set yet, but if they follow you on Instagram or Twitter at
I'll
DCBenny,
announce, yes.
you'll announce. And before you go, so this question I did want to ask you is, you've achieved a lot, but there's always more that we want in life. And I'm not talking about greedy more. I'm talking about like personal artistic goals that you have. Give me one thing that if time, money, executive producer interest, outside funding or whatever else wasn't an issue, what would be one project that no one knows that you'd absolutely adore making happen for yourself and for your audience? What would it be?
I shot a show called Comedy Kitchen, and it was based on a thing I would do in Brooklyn. When I lived in Brooklyn, once a month, I would have my comedian friends, three or four, come for dinner, and they would bring a dish that they'd made and had some significance in their family. It was a family recipe, or if they couldn't fucking cook, go to the neighborhood. Where's your spot in the neighborhood? Your
Right.
bodega, your little spot where you get your food, your little Ethiopian place, whatever it is, and bring that. So I have them bring a dish and bring a story.
There you go.
Okay. And we'd sit down and we would just eat. We talk a little bit about the food or whatever. And then everybody would take turns telling the story, and I had great comics on there. And
When you did you were shooting this as well, were you?
I shot this about a year ago in Brooklyn, and we shot a couple episodes of it.
Right.
And it's hard to get that stuff. It's hard to get it. It came out nicely. It came out really nicely, but it's hard to sell stuff when you're not 22 years old. And these were some ringers, man. These were that came on there. These were comedy vets that were that I knew would deliver the goods and that were great, and people that I liked too, comics that I liked. So they may not have been the industry darlings at the time or this or that, but this is what it was. And that project I always loved, and I hope one day it finds a home. Comedy Kitchen.
Absolutely. I hope one day I get an invite in my email. I must have missed that one. It must be in my spam folder.
We got to fly you in. We got to import you, man.
Thanks, dude. I love that as a concept. And I like, because obviously comedy and food, there's been a number of different things. Even look, All Things Comedy themselves do a show like What's Burning with Bert Kreischer, right? So they
Right.
But I like the idea of bringing a dish that is very personal to you or has a personal meaning. That angle, I think, is quite unique. Going, this is a traditional Polish Jewish dish that my dad used to cook, and he used to tell me stories about back when he was a kid, and boom, and there you go, you're gone for 10 minutes on a lovely little Wonderland trip down memory lane full of gags and reminiscing. I love that. That's a great concept.
It was a great time, man. It was a great time.
And here's where again I'm gonna give you a patronizing kick up the arse and say, Benny, there is absolutely no reason why you can't already start releasing that concept on a platform like YouTube. There's no reason why you couldn't, at your stage of career, and with you're a man who understands about saving money, and I'm sure you shot those for reasonably inexpensively.
Yes.
Start fucking releasing them, man. Start putting them up on that YouTube channel. Get Bill Burr or All Things Comedy to put a little bit of money behind it. Seek some of those other companies out. Group 9 Media, something like that. I think there's ways to have that out very soon. And within a short period of time, to have networks coming to you saying, oh yeah, we'd like to buy this concept now. I know you already pitched it, but we didn't realize so many people would tune into it and love it.
Yeah. We weren't listening at the time. Well, let us pray. I mean, I will. I'm working on all that stuff. Got some good advice from the youngster. I appreciate it. From the youth them gave me some good advice.
The youth them. You sound like all the yardies I used to knock about with back in the day.
Oh yeah, right, bro.
Dude, I gotta say also thank you to you today, because there's some crazy shit going on in the world right now. And outside of COVID and, the last few weeks of young black men getting, killed by police and hunted down by fucking rednecks, I needed a good reason to laugh today. I'm not going to lie, this morning I was getting stuck into my activist behavior on social media, trying to use my platform for some kind of good, for things that I believe in. And I was really fucking miserable this morning. And I was like, I wonder if if that's going to read on this podcast, and if we're going to spend an hour, if Benny just looking at me like, are you all right? What's going on? And you really lifted me out of that today, man. And I think that's what you do for your audiences all over the world when you're performing in clubs up and down the nation and overseas. So I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, bro. You take care. All right,
I know you just did a young person thing, but you just told me to go fuck myself. You realize that after that beautiful speech. You're like, man. Get fucked, Leach.
You're a cheeky bastard. You're a cheeky bastard.
You're a cheeky bastard.
I'll see you, man. Thanks a lot.
DC Benny, wait, don't disappear yet. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check him out. DCBenny.com is the website. He's going to have a special coming soon, a brand new album, which is called
Adrift in Predicaments.
He'll announce that on his Instagram, his Twitter, all those good things, at DC Benny, BENNY. Also, if you want to have a lesson with him, when are you available and taking bookings for more classes as well? If people want to get some
just reach out and we'll find a time.
Okay, great. All right, so DCBenny.com, you can find the email on there. And finally, he's got a brand new YouTube account, which has got videos that he started to upload of the kind of stories that we've been discussing today on the podcast, a couple of which he gave us, and many more of which will have you in fits of tears and laughter. You can see them on Instagram, on Twitter, but also check out youtube.com/DC Benny Comedy. Thank you very much, Benny. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, man.
You're an absolute legend, and I wish you all success in the world.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Take care, brother. Bye-bye.